So it's election season. The Iowa caucus, of course, last week, and tomorrow, Tuesday, sorry, is the New Hampshire primary, and I've been trying to keep up with it for the last few days, the last few weeks, and I want to stay on top of this. But as I read the news stories that are coming out today, I'm just so angry. And many of the articles that I'm reading about are about how angry that Americans are. And so I needed an outlet. So I'm going to make a video and kind of rant a little bit on this uncharacteristically balmy night in Berkeley. That's right. I should situate myself. I'm in Berkeley, California, a few blocks from the university, and when I moved here, my grandpa, who's a old school Republican. By that I mean, like a Rush Limbaugh Republican, a Bill O'Reilly kind of guy, but more on the AM radio kind of frequency. But anyways, when I moved here, he sent me a birthday card that said, "Have fun in the hotbed of socialism." I think that's reasonably accurate, but not entirely. I mean, there's a Chase Bank right downtown. There's a Wells Fargo. There are a few credit unions too. But it's like this is not full-blooded, red-blooded communism, right? Socialism is a very basic form of social care and redistribution of wealth that allows for every man, woman, and child to be provided for at the basic level: food, shelter, healthcare, education. And unfortunately, in many parts of this country, we don't have those basic needs provided, or millions, tens of millions of people are living in poverty. What is it, hovering around 20% now, I think? Certainly it's higher among black people. There are many children who live in poverty. And so America allows this situation to continue, even though it has more than enough wealth to basically provide those basic social needs. But we don't, for the most part. Berkeley, is a little, but we have tons of homeless people in Berkeley and in San Francisco, and so socialism here is still very light compared to what it could be and what it should be, if human beings were truly treated fairly. Which doesn't mean that those with skill and creativity shouldn't advance by way of their merit, but the way that human beings naturally want to interact, I think, allows for a kind of diversification of labor to emerge, of itself. And so what people like about capitalism usually is that it makes room for creativity, and it rewards valuable creativity, right? It weeds out those ideas that just aren't useful, that don't appeal to people, and allows those ideas which do, those products, those services that do appeal to people, to proliferate, thereby enriching the inventor or the owner of that idea or product or service. And when described in that way, capitalism just sounds like, it's another kind of fairness, right? You're allowing for those who can create in a way that is appealing to people. You're allowing people who create value to be rewarded for that value, so as to be able to create more of it and to improve it. But the problem is that eventually that sort of becomes imbalanced, and you have whole classes of people who, because of the access that they have to value or to money, are able to educate themselves more, are able to provide food, shelter, housing, and medicine for themselves in a way that these other classes aren't, because those other classes don't even have access to that basic level of wealth. Um, so yeah, when we talk about socialism and capitalism, I think we're always talking about a sort of dialectic, a tension within society that should always be maintained to some degree or another. And the question today is, has that polarity slackened and become imbalanced such that one side has gained so much power that the other side is at risk of being dissolved? Could it be that we need to tighten the tension to restore the polarity so that these basic human rights, and if you disagree that these are human rights, I would ask for some justification, and we can then talk about that. But human rights, right? Food, shelter, education, and healthcare. Would you deny, if you had food, shelter, education, and healthcare to provide, and you didn't provide it to someone, wouldn't that be, I don't know, not good, evil even, selfish? Wouldn't you feel bad about it? I mean, so socialism just means you're going to provide that for human beings because they're human beings. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't do capitalism. It just means that capitalism isn't allowed to run amok within those other spheres of human activity that don't have economic value, because they have cultural value, they have spiritual value, they have psychological value. Socialism protects these other spheres of value from the encroachment of the market. And I think also, another thing that is just beginning to be talked about in this election is foreign policy, and to the extent to which Hillary Clinton is a war hawk. I mean, you look at her record, and she's always in favor of bombing people on the other side of the world. The chaos that's unfolding currently, most recently, let's just go back a decade or so to the Iraq War. I mean, she voted for it. She defended Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, CIA sort of intelligence propaganda that led Americans to believe that there were weapons of mass destruction, that we knew where they were, and that we were going to catch Saddam red-handed. She voted for that. She defended it. And we see what has unfolded. She got us involved in Libya and Syria. And, so if you want a commander-in-chief who's going to be able to help us deal with, let's say, ISIS, which is the symptom of this earlier quagmire and catastrophe, would you vote for the same person who was involved in selling the initial cause of the current symptom? I mean, so yeah, more experience. She has way more experience getting the United States involved in destructive, expensive, immoral, illegal wars. And so, today I was reading about some recent campaign speeches that she's given, and the people she's invited to campaign and give speeches with her, and other endorsements. She's celebrating endorsements by Kissinger and by Madeleine Albright, former secretaries of state, and these are both former American government officials who many consider to be war criminals. And I'll let you look at read that history for yourself. She's it's strange to me that she would be wanting the support of people like that. And then, of course, there's this whole other thing that, just as she did to President Obama in the early primary states in 2008, she's pulling this sexism card from her deck, and she was referring to Obama bros back then who were lashing out against her purely because she was a woman. And now she's referring to Bernie bros, which, I've seen sexist assholes in every corner of the internet, on the right, on the left, libertarians, totalitarians, sexists are everywhere. So to pretend like somehow Bernie is his supporters have a monopoly on sexism is insane, right? I mean, just look at the people that Clinton has on stage with her, for Madeleine Albright to say there's a special place in hell for women who don't support each other, with the implication that there's a special place in hell for women who don't vote for Hillary. That's a sexist comment, and I'm not just saying that for myself. There are many, many women, young women, feminist women who feel this way, who feel insulted by Madeleine Albright suggesting that just because she's a woman, Hillary Clinton deserves to become president, and that any woman who doesn't support her in that is immoral. Many women are offended by this, and for someone like Gloria Steinem to, in conversation with the late night HBO talk show host Bill Maher, saying that the only reason young women are supporting Bernie is because that's where the boys are, is again insulting, really insulting to many women. And for Hillary to resort to the same tactic that she did against Obama in 2008, when, again, I think at that time, people were also kind of asking, like, why are you doing this? Everybody sees through it. This is just, sex baiting, gender baiting. It's not relevant. It's just not. People are not voting, young people, men and women, are not voting for Hillary because they disagree with her policies. They're questioning her integrity because she's taking and has taken millions of dollars from huge corporate interests, the private prison industry, defense contractors. Saudi Arabia gave her $10 million. All of the banks, of course, Wall Street, the insurance companies, the pharmaceutical companies. Why wouldn't we question the integrity of a person whose campaign is funded by these interests? At least if they're claiming to be for the American people. She's got perfect integrity if her constituents are these corporations, but if her constituents are also the American people, then yeah, she's lying to us. And for me to say that is not sexist. It's just a statement of fact about her record that anyone can observe. Now, a few articles have come out. Some people in her campaign are saying, well, Bernie's not perfect. He raised like $3,000 one time, and there were bankers in the room, and he was raising money for the Democratic Party. Well, recently he decided to play the game because in America, third-party candidates aren't welcome at the table. The two major parties will prevent them from being in the debates, from getting any media exposure, and they just won't have a chance. So of course, Bernie, if he wants to become the president and articulate his democratic socialism to America, he's going to have to become a Democrat, play that game as little as he can in order to be allowed into the room to have the conversation in the newspapers and on television with the American people. He's going to have to become a Democrat and play the game a little bit. So of course he's not absolutely perfect. And the whole thing is, it's not even about Bernie Sanders. It's not about electing him to office because he's worked so hard and he deserves it. And Clinton has worked twice as hard as a man would have had to work to get to where she is. I give you that. We do live in a patriarchal society. A lot has changed in the last 50 years, and a lot still needs to change. But she's worked hard. But it's not about her. We shouldn't vote for her just because she's a woman and she's worked hard. We need to vote for the next president of the United States, a supposedly democratic country, I've heard. So we want to vote for the person who's wanting to be elected for us, for the people. It's not about Bernie Sanders. He wants to create a movement. And yeah, he's 74. If he lasts 8 years, we're lucky. But that's not why he's doing this. It's not about him. It's not about his legacy. It's about the movement that he's trying to create to get money out of politics, out of education, out of healthcare, out of food, out of housing, Let the capitalist economy have fun with information technology, right? With trading and futures and all of this crap, and let us tax it because you're making so much money. But have fun inventing and creating, but don't touch politics. Don't touch healthcare. Those aren't values that you can commodify, right? So we're seeking a rebalance. And I think Bernie Sanders allows us to do that. And that's why I'm going to vote for him if he becomes the candidate of the Democratic Party in this upcoming election. And you know what? I think the polls are showing this, but fuck statistics. I mean, whatever. Just thinking about it as a human being, about thinking about American society, the American psyche, Bernie Sanders versus whoever, Ted Cruz or Jeb Bush or Trump, if somehow that happens, it's a clear victory for Bernie Sanders. If you put Trump next to Cruz, next to Bush, next to Rubio, they all seem more sane because there are no adults in the room. They're all, having a pissing contest, competing over who can torture suspected terrorists more effectively, more viciously. I mean, they're all competing over who takes science less seriously. They're all competing over who believes that a woman's body doesn't belong to them. Like, there's no competition if you put those guys, one of those guys, on a stage with Bernie Sanders, because the pitch of the moral vibration is just raised, and the contrast would be so stark that it would be an absolute landslide, and I just think that's clear. So anyways, I think that's enough ranting. I'm satisfied for now. Thanks for listening, and if you think I'm a fucking idiot, let me know.